Welcome to my 279th video on my work with OO gauge. This video will feature a real piece of model railway history, a Rovex Princess Royal class locomotive and LMS coaches. I did discuss the Rovex Princess Royal in some detail in my previous video on the modelling of the Princess Royal class, part 71 in this series. But at that time I didn't have an example of the original Rovex Princess Royal to show. They're not that easy to pick up these days. So when a Rovex Princess Royal and various other bits and bobs appeared as a lot on eBay recently, I didn't hesitate much before clicking buy it now. So in this video I'll actually be working with original Rovex models. Here's a complete example of the original Rovex train set. This is not the one I bought, just a stock picture. Why is this train set of such significance in the history of British railway modelling? Well, in many ways, modern, largely plastic-based OO gauge railway modelling can be traced back quite specifically to this particular train set. This train set was produced by Rovex, a company that had previously largely been involved in making plastic model cars, at the request of Marks and Spencers, who wanted an economical model train set for the 1950 Christmas market. The set was a great success. Nevertheless, Rovex ran into financial difficulties and ended up being bought out by the Lines brothers, becoming Triang Railways. Subsequently, when the Meccano-Hornby company was failing, Lines Brothers bought that company also, selling its railway models for a while under the Triang Hornby name before becoming the modern Hornby brand. So, this train set, you could say, led to the whole existence of Triang model railways, the seed of all that followed. Unfortunately, I didn't get the iconic red box for the set with my purchase. But I did get the 4 Rovex rolling stock items that were included in the set in their original individual Rovex boxes, plus a boxed Triang wagon, some other die-cast wagons, and some bits of track, telegraph poles, and a broken signal. The track that came with my purchase was not, sadly, the original Rovex track from the train set. Most of this track was clearly not made for any form of electric train set, as it's entirely made of plastic, including the rails themselves, so I'd assume it came from a clockwork set. The only piece with metal rails was one badly broken point. It's a shame I didn't have the original Rovex track, as I'd have liked to have seen to what degree the model would actually work on that track. The signal was missing its operating rod and the lever was broken, and I don't really have any plans to use these telegraph poles for anything. The red Triang box contained a northeastern brake van. You can see how badly warped that is. The original Rovex models and very early Triang models were made using cellulose acetate-based plastic, which proved sadly to warp badly over time in many conditions, with the result that surviving examples, like this wagon, are often too badly bent out of shape to be of much use for anything. The other 3 unboxed wagons have metal bodies, and these were actually made by Graham Farish, probably around the same time as the Rovex set. Here's that brake van, together with a piece fallen off from it. Not really of much use for anything, as I say. Of course, I really bought this lot for these, the boxed Rovex items, especially the locomotive. And here they are out of their boxes. The coaches, like the brake van, are so badly warped due to the instability of the cellulose acetate plastic as to be pretty useless. The locomotive and tender don't show significant signs of warping. Did they use a different plastic formulation for these? Or is it just that being attached to a metal chassis keeps them straighter? These coaches have really warped all over the place. I mean, they're basically curved upwards in a banana style, but they're also warped from side to side as well. The engine and the tender, on the other hand, appeared to be in quite good shape for their age, older than me, coming up to 75 years. Probably the most distinctive feature of the Rovex Princess Royal model was the way it picked up electricity in order to operate. Let's not forget, this was pretty much the first British model train set made with extensive use of plastics, so they were essentially inventing the whole genre when they designed this. Clearly the pickup arrangement was not one of their best design decisions, although it does add a special historical interest. The driving wheels of the Rovex locomotive were made of plastic, with very large flanges. Electricity was picked up from the two rails of the track by sprung plunger pickups towards the back of the loco, one for each rail, as seen here. When the Lyons brothers bought Rovex, they continued to produce the Princess Royal models based on the Rovex tooling. But they did get rid of the plunger pickup arrangement almost immediately. I'm not actually sure if trying examples with plunger pickups were ever made. I've certainly never seen one. Pictured here is an early trying example. This isn't very different from the Rovex version, except that it has metal driving wheels, through which it can pick up, and the plungers have been eliminated. Note that this model, like the Rovex model, has no representation at all of the valve gear. Here's a slightly later trying version, still from the same basic tooling. This example does have some rudimentary working valve gear. Here you can see the Rovex model at top and a picture of a real Princess Royal class loco at bottom. As you may see, the model is not all that accurate. Most particularly, it's way too stumpy, completely missing the elongated elegance of the real locomotive. I got my example onto the bench. It had quite a lot of fluff stuck to it, and there was some warping of the body, but generally it appeared to be in pretty good shape. The first thing I wanted to do was to check if the model's motor would actually operate. Okay, I'm just going to give this a little power trial in the sponge. I've just got the power connected to the plunger pickups there. The clocks are chiming. Ooh. And there you go, surprisingly, good lord, that's quite low power. That's only about 20% power on the bench controller. So for such an aged, let's try it the other way around. For such an aged mechanism, this works surprisingly well. Which I must say surprises me, because I thought it had just probably been fished out of an attic and never touched. But on the other hand, trying it out now and looking at that, I would say that looks as if it's been serviced well recently, but maybe it's just by luck. I'm sorry about all these clocks. I thought we were a bit past 10 o'clock, but apparently we're not anyway. So, well, that's pleasant news, right? If it can pick power up from those plunger pickups, because they're not the best things to pick power, but if it can pick power up from them, it certainly runs. So I can get this to run okay. And a sponge, I can get it to run okay on the rolling road. To get it to run on the rolling road, what I've done is put those plungers right on the end of the actual rails. I tried putting them on the rollers first, but the plungers didn't really seem able to get power from the rollers. And I've just, for what it's worth, I've put the tender up on the back there. Not that that's really relevant. So that goes, but, I mean, on the other hand, I can't get it to go on the actual track at all. It says backwards. It's perfectly operational. The problem is, and it operates even at fairly low voltage, like this. The problem is it just doesn't seem to be able to pick up power from the tracks, because those plunger pickups they're exerting very little pressure, so when you rail it up on the tracks, well, and the wheels don't really fit on modern track either, so, you know, it's sitting a bit high on the tracks, and those plunger pickups just don't, they barely, if you poke it, you can maybe get it to move an inch or two, but basically they don't work, those plunger pickups on modern tracks, so I don't know whether there's any way of getting this to run on modern track, really. Well, I'll have another think about it, but I don't know whether there's any way it can be done. I cleaned the plastic driving wheels with isopropyl alcohol on cotton buds. I also cleaned the bogie wheels. Quite a lot of dirt came off the wheels, perhaps not surprisingly. I tried to clean the tender as well. Note that the coupling fitted is of the earliest type of tension lock coupling as used initially by Triang, with a crossbar connected only on one side and bar and hook both pivoted in a vertical slot. I cleaned the plunger pickups with electrical contact cleaner. I lubricated the axles and connecting rod pivots. I put some gear oil and white grease onto the drive gear. When I tried the model on a layout, only the back wheels of the tender would sit on the track, as the coupling bar from the loco was bent up much too high. You can see here how the coupling rod was clearly bent upwards. Perhaps this was done deliberately to try to get more pressure on the plunger pickups. In order to get the coupling rod out, I unscrewed the screw holding on the rear pony truck. With that screw removed, I was able to remove the rear truck and the coupling bar. I oiled the plunger pickups while I had good access to them, hoping this would improve their engagement with the rails. With the coupling bar straightened, the coupled tender now sat level. I tried the Rovex model on both Bachmann and Hornby layouts, both code 100 track. I could hardly get any functioning from the model at all on the Hornby tracks, and very little useful performance on the Bachmann track.
Although this runs fine on the rolling road, getting it to do anything on the track is next to impossible because it just doesn't pick up. Famous last words. Oh, I don't know. See, we know it can go, but it won't pick up, you see. The wheels, I think the wheels are just pushing those contacts too far off the track. So it just won't go, you see. It's, whoops. It won't go. And if I ever could get it to go, I think it would probably derail on the points anyway, but see what I mean? We just can't get it to go. And that's actually more than I can get it to go. On the Hornby track, I couldn't even get it to go this much. Oh well, so there you go. It basically won't go on the track, but let's see if we can make it go backwards. Well, it's actually moved a couple of times its own length backwards there, but that's about the best I've got it to go, really. It just does not want to go, because it's not picking up. It's not picking up from those plungers, so what can you do? There's not much I can do about it, really.
Next, I felt that I should disassemble the model more, partially just to see how it was made in more detail, but also in hopes that perhaps something might be adjusted to make it pick up better. There was a body retaining screw in the chimney, as is often the case with older models. I undid that screw. With that screw removed, I was able to lift the body from the chassis. There were some rough lead weights in the body, at the back as seen here, and at the front around the body retaining screw. I suspect these weights were added by someone trying to improve performance rather than being original from Rovex, though I don't really know. The motor was connected directly to the plunger pickups. It was somewhat similar to an XO4 motor, but also notably different in several respects. Most significantly, the brushes are riveted to a fibre plate at the front of the motor and bear backwards against a forward-facing commutator. I'm not sure if spares were ever really available for these, but I'm not sure how you could possibly replace the brushes. Perhaps replace the whole front plate, but it certainly wouldn't be easy. The plunger pickups were held in place by metal brackets that went round the upper shaft of the pickups, and those brackets were held in place by screws. By loosening the screw, I was able to adjust the height of the pickup. I did my best to adjust both plunger pickups downward a little so that they would bear more on the rails.
Well, I've adjusted those plungers now, but honestly, I don't think I'm going to get anywhere with this, even if I can get it to pick up, because if I can get it to pick up, it still basically won't move. See? The problem is the wheels. The thing just has no traction on the track with those plastic wheels, so with the big flanges and whatever, so quite frankly, even if it just won't, I don't think it's going to move whatever we do. No. Oh, I'm sure it functioned better than this on its the original Triang track, but I don't have any of the original Triang track. It's getting stuck, to put it mildly. And heaven only knows what it would do when it goes over a point, if it ever goes over a point. So if anything, we've actually got it on too high here, but nah, it's not going anywhere, is it? And I don't think it's going to. So, what can I say? It's a piece of history, but it's not really a functioning model in any sense on modern track.